Okay, so hey everyone, I want to make this video for you guys that are real estate agents. And if you're a home buyer or home seller, you may find what I'm about to say interesting as well. But for those of you who are real estate agents and you are looking at the headlines these days, and it's almost the middle of June 2022, and we're going to look at some of these headlines. And as a matter of fact, I am going to, for those of you watching, I'm going to show you my screen. And if you're listening to the audio, it will still make sense what I'm saying, but I do have some visuals. And if you wanted to see those visuals, check the notes, the show notes, and you can have access to the visuals. But let's start with some headlines that you guys see when you're on social media or just online in general, and you're scrolling through your phone and being bombarded with information about, all sorts of things. And then, of course, the housing news catches your attention. So here I just did a quick Google search for housing market, clicked on news, came up these headlines. The economic shock hitting the housing market is getting bigger. 6% mortgage rates. Here's another one. Housing poised for most significant contraction in activity since 2006. And then here's another one. The U.S. housing market is heading toward the most significant contraction since 2006. Looking down here from the Wall Street Journal, even deep-pocketed buyers are starting to back away from the U.S. housing market. This headline is interesting. Housing market crisis is making boomers richer and millennials poorer. So that really does go into the fact that younger generation of who should be new home buyers, might be priced out of the market. But that's different than the housing market crisis that these headlines are implying. And that one in particular is actually stating. So I want to look at this one, the housing poised for most significant contraction in activity since 2006. And that's from Market Watch. And, it says, prepare yourself. The U.S. housing market is at the beginning stages of the most significant contraction in activity since 2006. So that's a pretty scary headline, right? It sounds like the market is crashing. And people say these things. And I think because the reason many people say this or think that the housing market is going to crash any day now is because of seeing these headlines and the way these headlines are written. And this is like probably one of the worst written headlines ever, because it's not in the context even of the story itself. So, I mean, the guys who write the headlines, they're good at writing headlines, makes you want to click, makes somebody like me want to click that headline because I want to see what that report says. And so it says here, the housing sector is in the midst of the biggest slowdown in over a decade, one economist says. But don't expect prices to fall yet either. So that headline is based on what one person is saying. And we're going to look at who he is and what he's saying. And what he's saying is absolutely accurate, but the way it's skewed in the headline is totally off base. And so let's take a look at this. Here's a quote. I don't think that home sales are going to grind to a complete halt. They'll just slow. I agree with that. People will still be able to sell homes. I agree with that, but it may take you a little longer than what it's been. And that's true too. I agree with that. And I think that's a great assessment. And that's what this guy, Ken Kiefer, deputy chief economist at Freddie Mac, is saying. And that all makes sense to me. And we're going to look at that in the Atlanta market in just a minute and what that means. It's not a crisis situation. It's actually, we're going back towards a crazy situation, from a crazy situation to something, a market that's more stabilized, where there's equilibrium in the market. And the headline saying it's a crisis. In reality, you could call it a correction. I don't like that because a correction implies, not necessarily, but it does imply, if it's out of context, that it's a crash. But no, it's getting back to where it is a healthy market with equilibrium between buyers and sellers negotiating prices. So The article goes on to say the U.S. housing sector is in the midst of the biggest slowdown in over a decade, one economist says, but don't expect prices to fall back down to earth just yet. So that line right there by this journalist, whoever this journalist is that wrote this, let me take a look. Do they have it? Is this by anybody or is this like a anonymous? Okay. This person has a name that I find very hard to pronounce. Arthi Swaminathan. So anyway, that's the person's name. Sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly. But that line, the whole article disproves this first line of the article. That's what's so incredible to me. So the U.S. housing sector is in the midst of the biggest slowdown in over a decade. One economist says, I think they're misinterpreting what the economist is saying, but anyway, but don't expect prices to fall down to earth just yet. Quote, the U.S. housing market is at the beginning stages of the most significant contraction in activity since 2006, Ken Kiefer, deputy chief economist at Freddie Mac, tweeted. Quote, it has been up in many data series yet. It hasn't shown up in many data series yet, but mortgage applications are pointing to a large decline over summer, he explained. He said home purchase mortgage applications are down 40% from the most recent peak in 2021. And that's the key sentence right there. And I'm going to explain what that means and why the headline is totally erroneous. So in the mortgage industry, they've had a really hot run with refis and new home applications. And that's what he's talking, new home purchase mortgage applications. They have gone down. So I'm just going to use some figures. They may not be accurate. If you're in the mortgage industry, you'll understand my point, but you might be able to pick out some flaws and nitpick exactly what I'm saying. But I think the analogy holds up. So say you're a mortgage loan officer and last year you were getting, let's say 40 applications a month. I don't know if that would be a hot month or sounds like it might be, but I don't know the mortgage industry well enough that the average loan officer might get 40 applications. But let's just say at the peak of the market last year, when everybody was applying to get a mortgage loan to purchase a house, the loan officers are getting 40 applications. And the reality was that all those people that applied for those 40 people that applied for a mortgage, most of them probably did not purchase a house because there were so many buyers in the market. And so the market has shifted and there's buyer fatigue and buyers are still applying for mortgage loans, but at a greatly reduced number of buyers. So maybe they're only getting 20 applications. But what's hidden in that reality is that 20 applications this year will have a greater percentage of buyers out of that 20 that actually purchase a home compared to the 40 mortgage applicants a year ago. Maybe still only 10 of those or 25% of the people that applied for a mortgage loan actually went ahead and made a purchase. So that's the context of this. The fact that mortgage applications are down under these current market conditions and what we've experienced in the last 2 years does not point to a housing crash. It's more an issue of buyer fatigue and the lack of inventory on the market. And I'll show you in a minute a chart from the Atlanta area to kind of give some even further context to that. So purchase and refinance applications are in fact down to the lowest level in 22 years. Well, the refining is, a lot of people are not refining now because the mortgage rate has gone up to 5%. That makes sense. And that has nothing to do with purchasing a home. It's refining it when you already own it. If you owned a property and you could have refined for 2 or 3% a year and a half ago, that was a great move, and many people did that. So they're lumping refinances and purchases together. It's almost unfair because nobody's refining now, for the most part, from what I understand. And they've already done that, and the window is kind of closed to doing that unless you have a really older mortgage that it's a higher percentage, and you could refi at 5% and lower your rate. That might be a thing, but I think that probably is very few people in that situation. So refis are down, purchases applications are down. It makes sense. There's buyer fatigue and there's low inventory on the market. And so there's a chart that is shown in the tweet that Ken gave, and The data is right there, and the facts are the facts. Mortgage applications are down. But the other quote that they have from him is that mortgage applications as a data point, quote, gives you a sense of where the market might be headed, Kiefer said in an interview with MarketWatch, because that's the early stages of when people are looking to buy a home. And if the volume of application falls, that tends to indicate that in a month and a half, mortgage originations of the home closings will also decline. And I don't agree with that because of what has happened in the last year. There's still the same amount of buyers that are out. The same number of homes are being sold, at least in the Atlanta market, with a very, very slight decline year over year. And in the context, you'll see it's almost insignificant, the decline. So we'll look at that in just a minute. Getting back to this article, quoting the economist Len Kiefer, he says, to be clear, I don't think that home sales are going to grind to a complete halt. They'll just slow. People will still be able to sell homes, but it may take just a little bit longer than what it's been. And so I want to go right over to some statistics. And while that article and those quotes from the economist are still fresh in our minds, I'm going to show a few charts. This first one is just the median sales price in the Atlanta area. This is the entire first MLS area, which serves the greater Atlanta region. So prices have, skyrocketed. The average price now is exactly $400,000, or the median price point. The average price point is probably just about the same. It's actually significantly higher. Now it's 476 is the average price point, which is really it's incredible how it keeps going up. But I want to look at this one as closed sales. So this goes back all the way to 2009, and you can see year over year, the number of closed sales of houses go up and down. And the highest point is right in the summer. Sometimes it's March, but it's usually April, May, June. Sometimes it's July. And then the lowest month is usually December. Sometimes it's January. And that's what this chart, these lows on these charts, that's January 2017. So for the most part, all those low home sale months are January of every year. And the high ones, there's one for June, May, June. So that gives you an idea. July. So those are normally the high months. And here we are looking at May 2022 statistics, and they are less than they were a year ago, but not significantly less. It's 6%, but the 6% is after a 30% increase from where home sales were during coronavirus in a very hot market. So they went up 35%. Now they're down statistically 6%, but they're right about where they would normally be anyway if it wasn't for coronavirus. And they might be a little bit lower than you would have projected 3 years ago, where they might be now, but not significantly less. And here is a chart that just really clearly illustrates what I'm talking about. And I show this a lot when I put out these videos. This is the month supply of inventory on the market. And you can see on the left side of the chart, almost 7 months of inventory back in 2012, and it has steadily gone down. I mean, it quickly went down as the market began to stabilize. By 2015 or 16, it was really at a healthy level. And ever since then, it's been going down. And then when coronavirus hit, it just dropped to the bottom. And that is the inventory of homes that are on the market. It would take 1 month to sell them. So it still remains at a very historical low. So one more statistic is interesting. This is the shows per listing. And this goes directly into the mortgage applications as I interpret the data and try to analyze this data. So these are the number of showings that it takes before a property gets under contract. So a house is listed on the market for sale, and then sometime later, it gets under contract. So how many people actually went, how many buyers went and looked at the home? And that's what this statistic is showing. So back in 2016, it was a month and a half, 2 months. I'm sorry, showings, 2 showings, 1 showing, 2 showings, 3 showings, 4 showings, went up to 5 showings in 2019. And here is where we experienced the crazy coronavirus hit. And then by January or April of 2021, there were almost 15 showings per home sale before house went under contract. And that is amazing, because what happened at that time is that houses sold very quickly. They were getting under contract in 2 days, 4 days, 5 days, a week. And so those 15 people that came to look at the house all came in a very short period of time. And the house was sold. So 14 people viewed the house, maybe 10 offers came in. And that means 9 people that wanted to that made offers lost out, and 1 did. All 9 of those that lost out applied for a mortgage loan a year ago. And so the fact that mortgage applications are down is almost irrelevant, because of the fact that there's so little inventory on the market, and the reduction of the number of buyers that are applying for mortgage loan are people that are just fatigued, or maybe they are priced out, but it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that the demand is still there for the houses. So in May, it was 9.8 showings before a home got under contract. That's almost 10 people. So there's still tons of buyers out there. It is taking a little bit longer to get under contract. And let's see if I have that stat. Let's go to the cumulative. Let's go to the days on the market. That's significant. So here's the days on the market. This is how long, the median number of days on the market. This is how long it takes for a house to get under contract. And it's still extremely low as an average. This is the median. The median days on the market. Let's go to the average days on the market. Okay, this is actually a better chart because this is more realistic, I think. So it's 18 days on the market. That's historically low, from 100 days on the market back in 2009, 80 days on the market back in 2013. Let's just pick a month here, 60 days back in 2018. Okay, so we're not really talking that long ago, just before coronavirus hit. February 2020, when coronavirus was just really becoming a thing, or just before it really affected the world big time. So 59 days on the market before getting under contract. And ever since then, the number of days on the market has just dramatically went down to, let's just say, an average of 20 days on the market for the last year or so. Anyway, this data, I hope that you were able to absorb this data. If you have any questions about what I said, reach out to me. It just kind of blows to smithereens this type of headline that says, prepare yourself. The U.S. housing market is at the beginning stages of the most significant contraction in activity since 2006. Well, the number of buyers that are going to look at homes is still really high. Homes are really selling at a historically fast pace, even though it may be 20 days instead of 5 days. It's still a very fast, quick time frame to sell a house with multiple offers and buyers. And when I say multiple offers, it may only be 2 or 3 as opposed to 12 or 15 offers. And instead of 20 people coming to look at a house or 18 people coming to look at a house, now maybe only 10 will come out. So it's things are cooling off, but they're cooling off and going in a direction where things are going to be normal, where they should be. So anyway, if you have any questions about that, if you're an agent wondering what in the world to do in this market, just keep your nose to the grindstone. There's opportunity to help your clients to purchase a home. And if you're a buyer and you have an agent that seems to be checking out and they're not engaged, you need to get with an agent that will engage with you in the market, and you can buy a home. There's less competition now. If you're qualified and you have that pre-approval letter from your mortgage lender, go out and you can buy the house that you want to buy. It may not be the same house that you would have bought a year ago or 2 years ago. The market has shifted in that way, but you're still a home buyer. You want to purchase a home, get with an agent, and you can find your home.